Did anyone have like a weird dream last night?
I had a very vivid dream.
I feel like last night was like weird dream night for a lot of people.
I don't normally remember my dreams, but
I don't normally either, but the other night I dreamed about like whales and like albino whales.
What else would Andrea dream about but whales?
I surprisingly dream about whales way more often than even I think I would. Like it's weird. I'll have a whale dream like once a week or something.
You weirdo, Andrea.
I'm going out with like a group of people and like finding whales.
Do you get to ride them ever?
No, I don't ride them because it's impossibly hard to ride them in real life, and it's also kind of illegal because they're like endangered, so you can't technically really even get close to them. Like
not even in a dream.
No.
I went to a beach and there was a dead whale and like the skin was falling off and it was rotting and it smelled really bad. And the skull like broke off and you could see the brain and it was pretty cool. So
well,
that's my sharing.
Thanks, Jack.
We're off to a great start with this APUSH review video. If I could draw your attention to the screen, you will see my film pick of the day. For those of you that are, can't get off the couch and looking for something to watch, this is my film recommendation for the day, folks. Gone with the Wind. I don't know that it's streaming for free anywhere. It might be something you have to pay $1.99 to rent or something and stream it. But if you've never seen it, it's a great film, and especially if you're a lover of old movies, or if you're one of my actor or actress friends, it's a great film. So it's all about, essentially, guys, the Southern aristocracy on the eve of the Civil War and through the Civil War, the Southern gentry. You'll never be writing an essay just about the Southern gentry and their aristocratic lifestyle, kind of modeled on the Old English aristocracy. But being aware of the impacts of slavery on the United States is going to be the development of a slave-based economy and a slave-based social society as well. And it's really epitomized in Gone with the Wind. So that's my film pick. I didn't mean to cut off the whale conversation and hear whether or not Andrea rode the whale or about the broken up skull that Jack saw on the beach, but anyhow.
I didn't ride it, but I got to ride in a boat right next.
Oh my God.
Well, I was
to make the whale decompose faster, the ranger people had to like cut chunks out of it.
Oh my God.
Have you ever
And
seen
there were like whale chunks.
Okay.
Did you know that when whales get beached and they die and then they're just sitting there, a bunch of gas like builds up from just.
Okay, I'm gonna end your whale conversation.
Okay. And they can explode, and that's why they had to cut chunks out of it.
Recording.
Yeah, folks. Let's end our whale conversation for when the video is not recording. Thanks. Okay. One comment is good, but we're droning on and on and on and on. So anyhow, so folks, we're going to continue talking about chapter 13. I'm sorry, chapter 12, and then we'll probably go into 13 a little bit today. So if you want to have your learning targets pulled up, you can. I've got the slides and learning targets up, and I'm currently screen sharing, I believe. So just scan it real quick, guys. This is the era of Frederick Douglass when his slave narrative is being published. Be aware of what slave narratives are. They're essentially the personal life stories of escaped slaves. There's not only Frederick Douglass, there's Solomon Northup. There's a whole bunch of famous slave narratives that you could potentially see as a source on your DBQ. And understand that slave narratives will cause more Americans to be for the abolitionist cause. Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison will go on speaking tours, and as men like Frederick Douglass go on speaking tours and their narratives are published, more and more Americans are receptive to the message that slavery is just wrong. So understand who he is. I'm not going to really lecture on Frederick Douglass or his life and times. Most of you, I don't know if most of you have, but a lot of you have read his book this year. So you have to know who he is and his impact on the abolition movement. He's probably the most famous African-American abolitionist. Knowing what the chattel principle is, and I'll go over some of this in the lecture, but I just want you to scan it real quick. Remembering things about slavery as a positive good, benevolent masters. Anyhow, cool. And then we'll finally talk about Texas real quick at the end. So cool. Just a few learning targets today, guys, and a lot of it's repetitive. I don't think there's a very good chance that you're going to see a DBQ on this stuff individually, but all of this stuff would fit into a bigger narrative about abolition, slavery, or westward expansion, or the sectional crisis. But none of this stuff in and itself is an essay topic. So cool. I think we can go through it pretty quickly. This, folks, I started off with the minstrel show because this is the era where the minstrel show starts to become the most popular form of American entertainment. By about the 1840s, traveling minstrel shows are popular. They are popularizing the same songs. This is one of the earliest forms of popular culture, then mass entertainment that most Americans could see. You know, old jokes like "Why'd the chicken cross the road?" I don't even know how that's related to the minstrel show, guys, but like old stuff like that that everyone has heard of, those jokes, "Why the chicken crossed the," those originate in the minstrel show. All these images are from a little later. The one on the left is from probably the 19 teens, and the one on the right is probably from the 1880s, 1890s out there. But be aware, 1840s minstrel show is a popular form of American entertainment. Not only does it reinforce racial stereotypes, these racial stereotypes are going to help maintain white supremacy all the way up into the 1960s, frankly. So know what the minstrel show is and know that's an effective way to stereotype and maintain white supremacy. That's basically what all this slide says, guys. It's, you know, it's comedy routines, it's song routines. It's often done by white people in blackface, sometimes even by black entertainers in blackface. If you watch Ken Burns Jazz, they have great film clips on the minstrel show. So yeah, be aware of what they are, and especially if you guys are interested in American music and an American stage entertainment, vaudeville, early stage acting, you can't understand that stuff without understanding the minstrel show as a part of American culture.
Modi,
yeah,
black people would like put on the like paint on their face. Wow.
Black musician in blackface. I don't know why. I don't quite understand it, but it was not like uncommon to have black musicians dressed up in blackface. I can't tell on this one. It looks like a bunch of those people are white. But yeah, in fact, there's a really famous picture of Louis Armstrong in blackface.
No way.
No,
yeah, this is actually
Satchmo.
This is at a New Orleans. I think, I don't know if it's a Mardi Gras. Yeah, it's a Mardi Gras festival, but that's Louis Armstrong in blackface. So I can't psychoanalyze it or explain it, but I'm just letting you know that this type of popular American entertainment was huge for 80 some odd years. So yeah, Louis Armstrong in blackface right there in a Mardi Gras parade. But anyhow,
Mahoney, I believe it's pronounced Louis.
Louis. Oh, sorry.
It's actually not.
Well, he is from Louisiana, so.
Oh.
I love to hear my jazz musicians bicker about things like that. That's funny to me.
Well, and Hello Dolly
in the same
introduced
section.
himself as Louis Armstrong.
Okay.
Hold up. Who said Green Lantern could talk?
Cool. I already mentioned stuff on this slide before, guys, when I talked about Indian removal. Please be aware that during the time period from 1820 to 1850, there's a major slave migration, and it's to the Deep South. We've forcibly removed Indians from places like Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, parts of Georgia, those cotton growing states, and more slaves are being moved from the increasingly depleted tobacco fields of the Chesapeake and moved south into the cotton growing fields. Both tobacco and cotton production are really, really intensive on the soil, and they burn out quickly, need a lot of soil. And we know that the market revolution has made cotton more in demand and more profitable, leads to a slave migration. Guys, that's how you get points on the AP test, is you show causation. If you talk about the market revolution leading to a slave migration to fulfill the cotton demand, they're going to be like, this person knows their stuff. Those connections are how you get the points for analysis. So please be able to do those. Whatever the topic is, you've got to make those connections. Causation, this causes that to happen. Cool. You should be very, very well aware of what an auction block is, guys, and the fact that people just were straight up bought and sold in this country. This is an image from the 1860s right here with a black Northern Civil War soldier outside of an auction house in a southern state. I don't need to say much more about that, folks. You guys are well aware that Northerners are involved in this too. Southerners might own the slaves, but Northerners are insuring them. Northern lawyers are drawing up the contracts. Northerners are using the products of their slave labor in their textile mills. So don't think this is just like a Southern problem. The whole country is tied up in this issue. These are just vocab terms. Chattel is property. We know that slaves are treated like property, and they are defined as property under the Constitution at this point. That's going to be amended and changed, as you know. And please note, benevolent masters are, folks. A lot of slave owners use this argument that I don't beat my slaves. I don't sexually assault my slaves. You know, I treat my slaves really well. My slave cooks my meal. My slaves watch my babies. I mean, if I treated my slaves bad, don't you think they would try to poison me or hurt my kids? But no, man, I allow my slave to read. I taught my slave a trade like blacksmithing. I look out for that poor, ignorant, you know, lesser evolved individual. I'm looking out for that person. He's part of my family. That's how many slave owners would respond to this idea that abolitionists would say slavery is cruel and immoral. Many slave owners would say, no, I'm a benevolent master. Anyhow, know what that is. You know what the old Southern gentry is, Southern aristocrats. You're going to watch Gone with the Wind, hopefully. If not Louis Armstrong in blackface anymore. Gosh dang it. Taking me so long. I forgot my mouse somewhere. Yeah, Gone with the Wind. You're going to watch Gone with the Wind or clips from it. Even if you just go on YouTube and watch 10 minutes of clips of Gone with the Wind, you'd be good to go on that. So cool. We don't need to spend any more time on the old Southern gentry. I love oak trees. That's an old plantation in Mississippi called Oak Alley. Beautiful grounds. I don't know if my links will work anymore. Well, I don't know. But if you're interested in seeing the clips, but not the whole movie, just get on YouTube. Also understand, guys, that this Southern gentry, they own the majority of slaves. Most Southerners don't own slaves. Most slaves are owned by the wealthy elites, and most politics in Southern states are controlled by the wealthy planters. Your average Southern man, especially your average Confederate soldier in the Civil War, is not a slave owner. So please don't think that your average Southerner owns slaves. We've already talked a little bit about how you justify slavery. It's a positive good, or we're benevolent masters. Oh, did something happen? Oh, someone wants to join. Okay. So understand that positive good and benevolent masters as a way of justifying slavery. We don't need to do that one. And let's just start talking Texas, folks. I already kind of broke down this fact about how most Southerners don't own slaves. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. And let's just talk Texas real quick. And I think this might be where we end today after talking Texas for a few minutes. So understand, folks, that this is all about the desire to move west. The idea of manifest destiny hasn't yet been written down. That's not going to be actually written down until the 1840s. But regardless, we know that poor, lower-class Americans, especially ones that don't own land, have been wanting to spread west since forever, since the Puritans have been in Massachusetts, and the indentured servants have been gaining their freedom in the Chesapeake. There's been a desire to move west and acquire land for yourself. And in the southern states, that's going to look like moving into Texas. We've already moved into the deep south for growing cotton. Now we're going to move even further west into Mexican territory. And so be aware, you guys all can picture the modern boundary of Texas. But you can see on the right that what the contested area of Texas that we're actually going to fight over is. And so here's what you have to understand. And I'm going to go over this in about 5 minutes. And then I think we'll probably call it for the day. So here's the situation, guys. Mexico is a brand new country. Mexico gained its independence from Spain in the 1820s. So Mexico, by the 1830s, has only been a country for like 10 years. And Mexico understands that if you don't have settlers in this open territory that are loyal to Mexico, you're going to lose it. Just like the French knew that they would lose Louisiana to us eventually. They didn't have enough French people to settle the Louisiana territory, so they sold it to us. Mexico realizes that we don't have nearly enough Mexicans or people loyal to Mexico in the northern province of Texas. And if we don't get settlers there, we're going to lose it to all those Americans in the southern states like Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi. So what Mexico does is going to backfire. Mexico says to lots of Americans, hey, if you guys convert to Catholicism and pledge allegiance to Mexico, we'll give you free land. You guys can settle here legitimately. And tens of thousands of Americans take them up on that offer. Stephen Austin is one of them, and Sam Houston's another one. Those are names that you guys may have heard of before, Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin. Those are Americans that take Mexico up on their offer. They bring their slaves, they bring their cattle, they bring their family, and that's what starts the settlement of North Texas. Mexico thinks that this is going to be a good idea. We'll have some loyal settlers. They say they're going to be Catholic. They say they're going to be loyal Mexicans. Great. But pretty soon, folks, these people forget their pledge to Mexico, and a full-on Texas independence movement breaks out. You don't need to know the details of that, folks, but what you need to understand is the connection between westward migration and the settlement of Texas. Look at that. Look at all that land, guys. You could carve out multiple states out of that. And if you remember the Missouri Compromise of 1820, you've got to understand that 3630 parallel, 3630 Missouri Compromise. Remember, guys, slavery is really, really limited where it can grow. All this stuff in orange is Mexico. Slavery has a very limited amount of territory it can expand into. But if we take Texas, man, how many slave states can we possibly carve out of that? That's what they're looking for on the AP test, guys. They're looking for not only the desire to expand slavery from the Southern politician standpoint, they're looking at your average white Southerner who is just looking to acquire land out there to leave his family, whether or not he owns slaves. There's two major desires for settling Texas: opening up more slave states politically, and just free land for your average poor white person, or even poor Hispanic person at that era. So be aware of what the what the Missouri Compromise does for the desired settlement of Texas, folks. All that orange stuff is Mexico. We can't expand slavery very far unless we start taking parts of Mexico. You see where I'm hopefully leading you. Cool. You don't really need to know much about the details, guys. Remember, there's a big border dispute about whether the boundary is, but America, and that's actually, I'm going to pause because that's the Mexican-American War in another chapter. So just be aware that we will take Texas. There's going to be, battles at the Alamo, battles at Goliad. Remember that guy I told you about, Santa Anna? He gets his wooden legs stolen at one point. You don't need to know all those details about the Texas Revolution, guys. What you need to know is why we settle it, and how it's going to ultimately help and lead to and inflame the sectional crisis. Remember, Texas is going to be an independent country for like 9 years. The American government won't annex it because they're afraid of what annexing it will do. Texas is its own independent country for like 9 years, folks. And please don't quote me on 9 years. I don't know if it's like 7 or 9 or 11 years, whatever it is. It's its own independent nation. Many Southerners want to annex Texas, but the major part of the American government is not willing to do that because they're afraid of what annexing Texas will mean, inflaming the sectional crisis. All of a sudden now, we're going to have a bunch more slave states, and that will throw off the balance of power. That's what you have to remember about the Texas Revolution, guys. Remembering things like what happened at the Alamo or remembering things about Santa Anna, not important at all. Understanding why we moved to Texas and understanding what happens once Texas becomes an independent republic, and it's potentially going to lead to the inflaming of the sectional crisis. I don't know how well I explained that. I tried to do it very simply and relatively quickly, but that's my explanation for that, folks. Does anyone have any questions on Texas or kind of the slave-based society that I referenced today? Any questions? No? All right. I'm not going to introduce anything more, folks. We'll do the next chapter tomorrow, which will be talking about the Mexican-American War and leading us, into that big conflict right there. So we're just a little bit behind where the review guide is, but no problem there. Does anyone have any questions on the review guide that you're currently working on?
Well, you said we'll go over like the Mexican-American War and stuff.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah, tomorrow, Madison. I'm happy to answer a question on it right now, but I'm not going to jump into my lecture on it. If you have a question on it or anything, totally happy to do that right now, though.
That's okay. I'll wait.
Okay. But yeah, I'll jump into my actual 20 minutes quickie lecture on it tomorrow. Cool. Anything else, people? All right, I'll stop recording, and then all the weirdos who want to talk about their whale dreams can